Okay, yes, I know, I've been gone for a long time. But hey, it is what it is. Now, in that time, I looked back at my videos and realized, my god, some of these, they were dreadful. Learning experiences, no doubt, but listen to the audio, look at the art style, I mean, what is that? So, today I've decided to redo some of my old videos, to get back into the swing of things, starting with the Book of Invasions. The mythology of Ireland is a vast and complex web of gods and heroes, legends and stories, full of ferocious Fomorians and cunning Fae. And back in the day, before stuff was written down, these stories were plentiful and passed down through storytellers who learned them. This all changed, of course, like most things, with Christianity. You see, we kinda had this whole thing where Christianity wanted to write down all our ancient myths, but there was one little issue. They only allow for one god. So, in this, all the gods are, just super magical and totally not gods, you guys, just angels and demons or blessed individuals, when in all actuality, they were gods. Now, with that little aside, let us delve into the story of Lebor Gabála Érenn, the historical founding of Ireland, and the rich Irish mythology that's contained within the Book of Invasions. It starts with the Book of Genesis, from the literal Bible. Yep, it's just there, translated into Irish. Until we meet Cessair, the granddaughter of Noah himself. Yes, Big Ark Noah, that guy. So, he seemingly had a brainwave before Big Flood, and was like, maybe more than one boat would be a good idea. So he sends Cessair as far west as she can, to a far-off land that may be safe from the flood. She eventually reaches the island of Ireland, with 50 women and 3 men, one of which being her husband, Fintan Mac Bócha. But suddenly, the other 2 guys die, just out of nowhere for some reason, and Fintan turns into a fish, which is strangely common in Irish mythology. Oh, and yeah, the flood, it reached Ireland, so no more Cessair. About 300 years later, another crew turns up, led by a dude called Partholon, who colonizes Ireland, sets up farms, tilling the land, and witnessing the birth of lakes, just kinda into existence. These are weird things known as lake bursts, and happen, all the time. Anyway, things are all fine and dandy, until they aren't. They have to battle the Fomorians. Who are the Fomorians, you ask? Good question. Okay, so, they're like these demon, giant, evil spirit things, and hate the human people for existing. And since they aren't, people, they don't count as one of the invasions. Now, Partholon is holding his own, doing fine, until all 9,000 of his people get wiped out in a plague, except for one, Tuatha Mac Carroll, who turns into a fish. This is becoming a trend, isn't it? This, of course, leaves Ireland open for yet another round of invasion. 30 years later, yet another boat of daring adventurers show up, led by this dude named Nemid. Now, this ship is the last of a fleet, since the rest of them fell for a very obvious hubris test and sank to literal hell. But Nemid and his ship actually do really well, exploring, establishing themselves, and killing 2 of the Fomorian kings, Gand and Sengand. But, of course, as is tradition, he dies of the plague a few years later, which led to them being enslaved by the Fomorians who come from a bigger island and subjugate their weaker neighbours. Anyway, the oppressed Irish, yep, that's familiar, decide to rebel. With a force of 60,000 fighters, they lay siege to the Fomorians. They managed to kill one of the kings, but sadly, they had a backup king, the dreaded, the fearsome Mork, who mercilessly slaughters every human on Ireland, except another ship who is having absolutely none of it and sails away. Some end up further north, some spread across Europe becoming the Celts, and some reach Greece, where they are promptly enslaved. Yep, again. Sounds about right. For 230 years, until they say nah, this, and return to Ireland. They return to a nicely deserted Ireland, by the Fomorians of course. Now, these men are known as the Fir Bolg, or Men of Bags. Yes, weird name, I know, don't ask me why they are called that. Anyway, the Fir Bolg divide Ireland into 5 regions, Leinster, Ulster, Connacht, and North and South Munster. most of which persist to the modern day, except North and South Munster, that's stupid. They are each led by a chieftain, who in turn is led by an Ard Rí. They live pretty happily and peacefully. For some reason the Fomorians are very inactive, which is nice. But 37 years later, a giant thunderstorm rose into Ireland, and on top of those storms, the Tuatha Dé Danann, the old gods. They demand half of Ireland from the Fir Bolg, who are a bit miffed that these guys just kinda rocked up and demanded half their country. I wonder why that certain message is so familiar. So they go to war, and it is big. Like, big. Like 100,000 Fir Bolg just die in one battle. But they do strike a few blows against them. In the big battle, the Ard Rí of the Fir Bolg, so his name is spelled like this. It's a lot and it's stupid, but we're gonna give it a try. Uchid mac Airc fights Nuada, the king of the Tuatha Dé Danann, and lobs off his arm before losing. Now, because Nuada has no arm, he can't be the Ard Rí anymore. So this guy Brest takes charge. Until Nuada comes back, with a shiny new silver arm, and an even cooler name to put with it. Nuada Argatlov, which means silver-handed. Now it's time to fight the Fomorians, again, but this time they have half Tuatha Dé Danann, half Fomorian, all-around cool guy Lugh on their side. During the epic battle, Nuada is killed by Balor, the big bad of the Fomorians, who Lugh promptly kills with a sling. This beats the Fomorians once and for all, and the Tuatha live on as great leaders of Ireland, until Lugh gets stabbed like 30 years later. Anyway, the last invasion of Ireland is the actual Irish people, who are the ancestors of the current population. Their fleet arrives, and despite the Tuatha Dé Danann's best efforts, they do some fighting, have some adventures, the usual invading stuff, you know? Fight off a few plagues. Anyway, at this time, Ireland was run by the 3 Ard Rís of the Tuatha Dé Danann, who were married to the 3 earth goddesses, Banu, Eru, and Fola. You may have noticed Eru sounds a lot like Éire, the Irish for the actual island of Ireland, and that's because each goddess wanted the island named after them. Now, time to point out a plot hole. Banov was supposedly older than Noah, and was just chilling on a mountain when the flood came, and since she was part of the Tuatha Dé Danann, how was she there before the first invasion, but only arrived by the 4th invasion? Well, Christianization! That whole first invasion was just a Christian rewrite of this story with the 3 Ard Rí and their 3 goddess wives. This is all just to prove that the Tuatha Dé Danann were in fact not gods. Anyway, long story short, Banov is Casair. Now back to the story. The Tuatha Dé Dananns were having none of this, and so they blocked the Irish people off with a magical storm. But then, the aforementioned poet that got them on the island in the first place gave a really nice poem to Ireland herself asking if they could live there. When she complied, the Tuatha Dé Danann decided they were beat, and they split the land between the Irish and the Tuatha. The Irish could have the overworld, and the Tuatha would take the otherworld. And that's it, the 6 invasions of Ireland. That definitely happened, according to the Book of Invasions. This has been a crash course in Irish mythology. I'll see you in the next one.